Our reading is taken from the Gospel according to Luke, from the 18th chapter, verses 9 to 14. We are reading from the NRSV translation. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves, that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus, God, I thank you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of all my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified, rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all who humble themselves will be exalted. Listen to what the Holy Spirit is telling us today.
The words we receive inspire us, comfort us, and challenge us. So, have you ever naisip nyo ba? Have you ever thought of yourself as someone better than someone else? Every day. Tuwing nag-scroll sa Facebook. Minsan mo na bang naisip na mas magaling at mas matalino ka than your sibling, co-worker, or even churchmate? Talaga, meron kayo dito?
Sa family.
As a family. No? So, minsan na bang naisip, ito rin, minsan nyo naramdaman naisip na mas matalino, mas maganda, o mas magaling ka kaysa sa jowa mo. Diba?
Sagot kayo. Yes.
Meron bang ganyan? Meron... Elephant in the room. Merong minsan jojowain niya kasi feeling niya mas less sa kanya. May ganon, ha? May ganon. So lahat tayo ay nakapag-isip na ng ganyan. No? Yung nakapag-isip na tayo at one point that we feel or think that we are better than someone else. Either with a specific person or with generally speaking. No? At baka nga mas madalas natin yan iniisip nang hindi natin napapansin. And some of our attitudes and behaviors come from this way of thinking. Now, according to the article of Sharon Martin from the website Psych Central, a website for psychology, and I quote, "The root of perfectionism is believing that your self-worth is based on your achievements." Yung sabi niya, ang pagiging perfectionist ay nagmumula sa idea na ang value mo as a person is based on your achievement. Or another, kasi part din naman achievement yung position na nakuha mo, kung mataas na ang position mo sa company or wherever, yung value ng pagkatao mo, hindi na di-detach dun sa kung ano man yung position or achievement mo. At maraming high achievers and successful people have a tendency for perfectionist attitudes and behaviors, or yung high and rigid standards. Maraming leaders, tendency yan. Kahit saang larangan. But there are also those we call as toxic perfectionists, where nothing you will ever give or do will ever be satisfactory. We see some caricatures of this sa mga movies like Devil Wears Prada by the character of Miranda Priestly. Na bet ng mga bakla, i-invibe sa kanilang sarili. Sa totoo naman, hindi naman maganda. O yung prequel ng story ni Cruella de Vil. Anong movie yon? Cruella. Diba? Yung kanyang nanay. Yung perfectionism ng kanyang nanay, yung sobrang taas, sobrang ganda, at sobrang galing ang tingin mo sa sarili mo, everyone else tsaka mababa at loser. There's no distinction between you as a human being and the success, position, or success you have achieved or imagine having achieved. Achievement feeds and hardens perfectionism. Ang problema, ito pa isang problema. Ang problema, mayroong mga tao na perfectionist at napakataas ng tingin sa sarili, pero in truth, hindi naman talaga. Diba? One example. Donald Trump. Diba? Yung galing na galing, gandang-ganda sa sarili, pero hindi naman talaga. Diba? So attitudes of perfectionism, Sharon Martin continues in the article also by saying, ito naman yung parang hugot, bakit daw nangyayaring ganito. So one reason would be perfectionism is encouraged in some families. Sometimes parents knowingly or unknowingly establish perfection as the standard. These parents require straight A's in school or flawless piano recitals. Mistakes are also harshly punished in these families. The punishment may be severe, even abusive. These include name-calling, yelling, shaming, the silent treatment, and physical punishment. It is conveyed to the child in words or actions that mistakes will not, or failure will not be tolerated. This is of course common experience nating mga LGBTQIA. Mas na-experience natin to. LGBTQIA plus children. And we excel academically and other extracurricular activities to compensate for our sexuality or gender identity. Sometimes it is also the way we try to evade or soften the homophobia or transphobia in our families. Siguro mas matatanggap nila ako kung honor ako sa school at kung marami akong awards. Minsan naman, ito yung means ng ilan sa atin sa LGBT community para bumangon at magpursige na may pangako sa sarili, bukas luluhod ang mga tala. Diba? Or bukas dudurugin ko kayo. Ganyan. Oo, diba? Magpapakagaling ako at magpapakayaman para hindi nyo na ako aapihin someday. Para hindi nyo na ako kayang saktan. I will be so good with my career or craft that you will pale and shrink in comparison to me. But of course, this is not only true for LGBTQIA+ people. Kahit may privilege ang mga cis-hetero people, some of them also equally experience unfair standards and stereotyping expected of a straight man or a straight woman. Panganay na lalaki ka, dapat magaling, madiskarte at matalino. Hindi ka dapat weak para mag-provide sa iyong magiging asawa at pamilya someday. Diba? But if we are not careful, our own success, independence, or even wokeness of our own excellence can be cataracts that blind us. Our own self-image can become poison to our life, can become fatal to our faith, and can become toxic to our relationships. And we're not even aware of it. A commitment to excellence is good, and everything should always be committed to do and give their best no matter what challenges or struggles that may come. And no matter what career, craft, field, or endeavor, no? Totoo naman yun, kailangan maging excellent tayo sa lahat ng ating ginagawa. Diba? At ano man ang ating gagawin. No? A commitment to excellence. Itong ang open table ay minsan nakilala na, kilala pa rin naman sa pagiging bibo masyado. Diba? Bida-bida, ganyan. So it's okay to be committed to excellence, to striving. And many ancient philosophers din naman, both East and West, ay maraming chika tungkol sa struggling and commitment to excellence of anything that you will do. No? Tama at nararapat magpagaling at magpaka-excel. Maikli masyado ang buhay para sayangin ito on mediocrity. Amen? The problem is not excellence. The problem of perfectionism is the attitude that we think and feel, whether we are aware of it or unaware, that we are above others and others are below us. At dahil yun yung thinking natin, then we set unfair or uninformed expectations and judgments on others. I think, and let me propose, that perfectionism comes from this internalized idea that you are above someone else. And therefore, you impose your perfectionism or high and rigid standard towards others and even towards yourself. Yung pagiging magaling or successful mo, toxic na rin pala, even to yourself. So in our reading today from the Gospel of Luke, Jesus tells us a parable. May kwentong sinabi si Jesus of someone who thinks too highly of himself and his self-image. And his self-image rests upon the faults and the sins of others. So hindi lang na mataas yung tingin niya sa sarili niya, yung pagiging mataas ang tingin niya sa sarili niya, nakatungtong dun sa pagkakamali ng iba. At ano yung chika niya doon? Sabi doon sa kwento, nagdadasal siya. Panginoon, salamat at hindi ako tulad ng ibang tao. Salamat at hindi ako magnanakaw. Hindi ako cheater or adulterer. Hindi ako taong tampalasan. Kasi sa translation English, rogue. Hinanap ko ano yung rogue sa Tagalog. No, sabi tampalasan pala. Tampalasan. At lalong hindi ako tulad nitong tax collector na ito. Diba? Ako ay nagfa-fasting 2 beses sa isang linggo at nagbibigay ako ng 10% gross income computation. So, hindi lang problema na mataas ang tingin niya sa sarili niya, ang kataasan ng imagination niya ay nakatungtong sa tingin niyang pagiging mababa o tsaka nung kanyang kapwa. Para ma-feel niya na maganda, para ma-feel ko na maganda ako, tatabi ako sa tingin kong tsaka. Para ma-highlight ang kagandahan ko. May ganyan?
Yes, sir.
May ganyan.
Example number 1. Wow. Exhibit A.
Yes. Marahil tama nga naman. At tama naman talaga. Isa sa chika ng professor ko sa New Testament, wala siya actually sinabing mali in most dun sa kanyang dasal. No? Tama naman, hindi dapat magnakaw. Hindi dapat bumoto ng pamilya ng mga magnanakaw. Hindi dapat manloko ng kapwa or commit cheating sa isang relationship. Maski pa sa open relationship. Oh, hindi ngayon na narinig yun, di ba? Pwede ka rin mag-cheating sa open relationship. Tama naman, hindi dapat rogue. Ano yung tampalasan? Tampalpuki. Hindi dapat taklesa. No? Hindi ka dapat yung antag dito. Ang tawag dyan, toxic, hindi toxic. Ano yan? Matabil sa social media. Tama at tunay naman na dapat maging mabuting tao sa lahat ng oras, lugar at panahon. Tama naman dapat woke tayo sa maraming mga iba't ibang issue ng lipunan at mundo. Tama na meron tayong ethical commitments na pinaninindigan at tinitindigan. Pero hindi dapat ito nakatungtong sa kasamaan o pagkakamali ng iba. Hindi dapat nito sinisilip ang bawat kilos o hindi pagkilos ng kapwa para lang masabi na, hoy, ako ay magaling. Kasi siya ay hindi magaling. Mabuti ka kasi mabuti ka. At kung tunay na mabuti ka, hindi ito kailangan pang i-mention kay Lord and sa others. Goodness, beauty, excellence, like truth, has a way of speaking and revealing itself. They shine by themselves without resentment nor arrogance. Although, in all fairness naman dun sa Pharisee sa parable, di ba, Pariseo, na binanggit doon. Perhaps their rigidity to the adherence of the law of Moses, comes from centuries of occupation and war. No? Na-divide yung kanilang kingdom, the kingdom of David, na-divide to north and south kingdom. Eventually, yung northern kingdom nawasak, nawala. Review ng Old Testament. Yung southern kingdom, in-exile sa Babylon at winasak yung templo. Then one empire after another conquered and oppressed them. And they have always interpreted these events as punishments from God because they did not follow the law of Moses to every letter of it. Yun yung interpretation nila eh. Kaya nangyari lahat ng ito sa amin kasi hindi namin sinunod yung batas ni Moises to the letter. But again, it's an interpretation. Kaya kami nagkakaganito at patuloy na nagkakaganito kasi hindi perfect ang pagsunod namin sa covenant. Out of fear, may mga segments of Jewish religion, even up to now, who are perfectionists sa adherence of the Mosaic law. But the problem is not the following of the law. Hindi naman yun yung problema eh. Hindi naman problema yung pagsunod dun sa batas. The problem is when a person or group of people think that simply because they follow the law, they are over and above others. Simply because they are Jewish, they have the right to the land. Ito yung nakakajirits kay Lord. Masyado kang mapagmataas. Masyado ka ng perfect. We have to be careful that simply because we consider ourselves as good, and perhaps totoo naman, hindi naman sinasabing hindi. Perhaps totoo naman that we are good, and we are doing good. You are doing good. You have to be careful not to look down on others who do not believe, think, or do the things the way that you do. Worst, you must be careful not to demonize or dehumanize others, even if by every standard, the other person or other group of people are indeed committing sin. After all, no matter how good we are, how good you are, and how much good you are doing, no one can ever be perfectly good. No one is so intelligent or excellent that they do not need others to learn, to grow, or to succeed. In the Gospel of Mark, and then later in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus asked the question, nagtanong si Jesus, who is good but God? Self-righteousness or self-greatness is the other name for perfectionism or the basis of perfectionism. And everyone has a tendency for it. Lahat tayo. Lahat tayo, feelingera talaga. Every now and then. Lahat tayo may tendency to think that we're above others. Both the pinklawans and the pulawans think that they are above each other. Both religious conservatives and progressives think that they are above over the other. Gen Z, millennial, and boomers, all of them think that they know and above the other generation. Even if we are truly woke, good, and have impeccable character, perfectionism expressed in self-righteousness poisons our heart and our souls. It also becomes, nabanggit na kanina, cataracts, catarata, that blinds us from our own flaws and areas of our own characters that we need to also address confess, and transform. Ang pagiging masyadong magaling. Ano to? Ang pagiging masyadong galing na galing at gandang-ganda sa sarili ay lason sa kaluluwa at sa ating pagkatao. To be extreme about it, medyo magiging extreme ako. To be extreme about it, and this may shock you and others, I hope hindi ako mabash, if and when, mangyayari kaya ito? If and when the Marcos genuinely confesses their sins and the sins of their family with such remorse and guilt, and therefore willingness to correct the mistakes of the past, they would be better and justified and redeemed than any Pinklawan who thinks that they are still way better and above. At truly, kung totoo to, kung mangyayari man ito, feeling ko hindi. At truly repentant Duterte will be made right and redeemed than for any activists who will continue to see themselves above others. A repentant conservative Christian willing to listen and to talk will be far better in the eyes of God than a progressive queer Christian unwilling to forgive and extend reconciliation. Do not let your wokeness be in itself a sinful attitude. Lest I be misunderstood and intentionally misquoted by malicious individuals. I'm not justifying BBM or Duterte or anyone else or the Pulawans. I'm not justifying mediocrity in our careers, relationships, crafts, or in this church community. I'm not justifying yung idea na pwede na. I'm not justifying intentionally committing hurtful behaviors and actions, then excusing them because imperfect naman tayo lahat. We must continue to be good and to do good to everyone. We must continue to be woke at magpatuloy sa pagmumulat at pagpapanday ng sarili at ng iba. What I'm saying for today's first Lenten lesson are two things. Kung hindi pa malinaw. Number one, do not think that you are above others or that you are already okay by virtue of your own goodness or success. And do not let your goodness stand upon the flaws of others. Huwag mong masyadong silipin ang iba at gamitin ang katsakahan nila para pagandahin ka. Number two, at yun yung nasa kanta, leave room for grace for those who are most difficult to love or care for. There is grace for you and there's also grace for others. Even the most, sabi nga, the most difficult and radical thing about Christianity is that there is grace even for someone like Hitler. No one is outside of God's grace. Again, hindi na-justify yun, ha? That's not what it means. Okay? But there is always grace even in the most evil of persons on this earth. Brené Brown tells us, and I will say it in paraphrase. Hindi ko kasi mahanap yung libro eh. Sabi ni Brené Brown sa kanyang librong Belonging, paraphrase lang to, based on memory ko. Let us resist the tendency to dehumanize those who are polar opposites to us, even if they are doing exactly that to us and to others. Do not demonize and dehumanize those who dehumanize you. Do not become that which you are fighting against. Who is good but God? Who is perfect but the Lord alone? No one among us must think too highly of themselves. No one must see their own goodness or wokeness as better or above. No one must use the flaws, failures, and even the sins of others as stepping stones to rise higher. What I'm saying now is also a problem that Paul, akala natin yung mga problemang ito, problema lang natin ngayon eh. It's the same problems 2,000 years ago. or even longer. Even Paul also tried to address in some of his letters itong idea na feeling ko above ako to someone. No one is more spiritual or more holy than anyone else, even if it is true that you are spiritual or holy. The grace of God is given to all, and the gifts of the Holy Spirit are given to each according to the purpose of ministry or calling, inside and outside the church. One evangelical phrase I like, hindi ko lang kung narinig nyo na to. Meron ako isang evangelical phrase na narinig ko from way back. The ground below the cross where we all stand is flat. Narinig nyo na yon? Ano to? Pentecostal. Baptist. Sa Baptist ko yata ito narinig eh. The ground, ang lupa sa baba ng krus where we all stand is flat. All of us are flawed and continually in need of God's grace and the grace of one another. We are all flawed. Lahat tayo ay may imperfection. Lahat tayo may katsakahan. Although I also want to say, walang kinalaman ang ating sexuality or gender sa pagiging flawed natin. Okay? Hindi yun. It's attitudes and behaviors. And the way of thinking. Okay? We are all flawed. Lahat tayo may katsakahan. Kasi kung perfect ka na pala, hindi mo na kailangan ng Diyos, simbahan o iba pang tao. Tumira ka sa liblib na kuweba o kaya sa isang isla, mag-isa at doon mo, mag-isang purihin ang sarili mo. Perfectionism poisons our hearts and souls. It poisons our faith, ministry, and advocacy. Sa advocacy, di ba? Sa mga nakakaalam sa, hindi pa siguro masyadong, pero sa LGBT community, hindi rin perfect ang LGBT community, especially the organizations. Dami ng katsakahan din sa mga LGBT organizations. At part ng katsakahan nun yun, yung thinking, mas magaling kami. Mas maganda kami. Mas okay kami. May mga ganyan sa LGBT. Pati sa HIV organizations, di ba? Perfectionism poisons our faith, ministry, and advocacy. We must excel and achieve. But we must do so in and with God's grace, with a little room for failures and mistakes. Because only through failures and mistakes that we genuinely grow into the maturity and spirituality of God's love. God's love that is both gentle and firm. Amen.